So, if you've been following the Breonna Taylor case for any length of time, you'll know that it took like 9 months or many months of coordinated protests across the entire world in order for there to be any degree of an investigation into her death. To go over the facts of the case really quickly, um, basically, Breonna Taylor had an ex-boyfriend who had some involvement in drug-related incidences. She herself did not have any relation or knowledge of those drug crimes. Um, the police, however, got a warrant to try and track her ex-boyfriend down, um, and executed said warrant on her property, on her apartment, despite the fact that they already had her ex-boyfriend in custody. So this warrant, by the way, allowed them to go to her house and enter and question. However, it was not a no-knock warrant. And a no-knock warrant, for those of you who don't know, is a warrant that basically allows police officers to break into private property and homes. Um, so the police showed up at a woman who had nothing to do with the case that they were investigating. They showed up to her home in the middle of the night, unannounced. Hello, youth. Unannounced, they broke into her apartment, and it was at that point that her boyfriend, hearing unannounced intruders coming into their home, took his legal firearm and fired at the intruders. This provoked a hail of gunfire from the intruding police, who at this point were breaking the law. And that gunfire both endangered neighbors and also killed Breonna Taylor, and possibly injured her boyfriend, though I don't remember that, whether that happened or not. And we know that this was unannounced because we have actually a recorded call to the police by Breonna Taylor's boyfriend at the time, calling about armed intruders who had broken into their home and shot and possibly killed his girlfriend, who had been sleeping next to him at the time. So these are the basic facts of the case. And because police were involved in this killing, there was not a major investigation. It was going to be just left. You know, they did their duty. And then protests broke out across the entire world. And after immense public pressure, they finally agreed to investigate this murder. Now, what happened during the investigation was that they found all of the witnesses, despite police saying that they had announced themselves as police officers, all witnesses to the case, all neighbors within earshot of this, reported not hearing police announce themselves at all. Which means that armed government agents entered a woman's house, an innocent woman's house, for no reason, because they already had their suspect in custody, and then proceeded to murder her and then get off scot-free. That's basically what happened here. Now, one of the things that throughout all of this has been a bit confusing was after they launched the investigation, the attorney of, what's his name? Let's see. Yeah, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, pictured here, has been talking about how the use of force was justified. You know, they're like, you know, it's nothing happened like that was illegal. Like basically covering his own ass at every given opportunity. So then we finally got to the grand jury that would hand out indictments in the case. And so basically, for a grand jury, they bring in a bunch of citizens, um, and the citizens get recommendations from the attorney, the attorney general. And in this case, and then they deliberate, and then they make a decision about what crimes to indict people on. Like, that's how a grand jury works. In this case, the grand jury's sole indictment was for reckless endangerment by one officer in the case, not for actually killing Breonna Taylor, but for firing bullets so haphazardly that they went into neighboring units. So, the actual murder isn't going to be prosecuted. Instead, it is the bullets that hit neighboring apartments, neighboring complexes. Which I think if you think about that for a little bit, like just a little bit, that seems really, really, really weird. And yeah, exactly, done randomly. 4 cops shot and killed a black woman, and the only one that got in trouble is the one who missed. Um, the the issue here is that normally this would be, well, that's all that happened. I guess we have to rely on a civil lawsuit from the family to get like a settlement or something, and that's the justice we're gonna get. However, something strange happened. One of the jury members came forward with a lawyered up, and basically was like, "Hey, the prosecutor who handed us charges to look at, really fucked up and hasn't been telling the truth in the media, and we want an opportunity to tell what happened in the grand jury proceedings." Because here's the thing about grand jury proceedings: we don't actually get to see what the proceedings are. Like, we don't get to see the conversations that happen within a grand jury. So that juror successfully argued to a judge that the proceedings should be released to the public. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to proceed from here. However, we are going to be getting more information about this grand jury proceeding. But what we know so far is absolutely damning. Yeah, let's see here. Okay. Yeah. In the statement, the grand juror said that homicide laws were not explained during the proceedings, even though the panel asked about them. Questions were asked about the additional charges, and the grand jury was told there would be none because the prosecutors, aka Daniel Cameron, didn't feel they could make them stick, the statement said. The grand jury didn't agree that certain actions were justified, nor did it decide the indictment should be the only charges in the Breonna Taylor case. The grand juror added that self-defense and justification laws were not explained either. In a separate statement, another grand juror, represented by Glogauer, an attorney, said they were pleased with the judge's ruling Tuesday and will be discussing possible next steps with counsel, something that is likely very wise of them to do since they are now treading on some major legal battle territory. Yeah, Jefferson County Circuit Court Judge Annie O'Connell, another reason why you should pay attention to your state judge elections, ruled the court proceedings could be released, allowing grand jury panelists to speak publicly and answer questions about the case. For the record, this is not usually done, and the judge goes on to clarify, to be clear, the court's rulings on this motion are applicable only to this case. There exists additional interest to consider in making this decision, the interest of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky to be assured that its publicly elected officials are being honest in their representations. As applied in this case, this court finds that the traditional justifications for secrecy in this matter are no longer relevant. This is a rare and extraordinary example of a case where, at the time this motion is made, the historical reasons for preserving grand jury secrecy are null. Yeah. This is this is a pretty base judge as far as judges go, okay? Um yeah, Cameron said he disagreed with the judge's decision but will not appeal it. He said recordings of the proceedings had been published and that legal issues like causation, justification, and others were always at the forefront of the months of our investigation and had to be considered by my office analyzed the potential charges. As special prosecutor, it was my decision to ask for an indictment on charges that would be proven under Kentucky law, he said, adding that he remained confident in the presentation he made to the grand jury. Which is a strange thing to say when the grand jury, members of the grand jury are coming forward saying there is some intense fuckery in this case, and a judge has just been convinced that there was enough actual fuckery in the case to make it a valid order to release it to the public. Yeah. Louisville attorney Leland Hubert said this was a major ruling. I do think this ruling gives the grand jurors the ability to discuss what they heard in that private room. That's a landmark decision in my mind. You'd think that would be appealed because it's so rarely done. But the fact that it's not being appealed probably means that there is there's some dirt there, you know? Chat on screen? Your chat should be on screen, friend. Oh no, did you guys break chat? Did you guys break chat? What did you do to chat? No, I'm seeing you in chat. Like on my screen, you're still in chat. Okay. Good. Good. No need to panic, everybody. We've got our tech support, the finest tech support is working on this, okay? Um okay. So let's actually take a look, now that the grand jurors are free to speak, let's take a look at the full statement here. Statement of anonymous grand juror number 1. Being one of the jurors on the Breonna Taylor case was a learning experience. The 3 weeks of service leading up to that presentation showed how the grand jury normally operates. The Breonna Taylor case was quite different. After hearing the Attorney General Daniel Cameron's press conference, and with my duty as a grand juror being over, my duty as a citizen compelled action. The grand jury was not presented any charges other than the 3 wanton endangerment charges against Detective Hankison. The grand jury did not have homicide offenses explained to them. The grand jury never heard anything about those laws. Self-defense or justification was never explained either. Questions were asked about additional charges, and the grand jury was told there would be none because the prosecutors didn't feel they could make them stick. The grand jury didn't agree that certain actions were justified, nor did it decide the indictment should be the only charges in the Breonna Taylor case. The grand jury was not given the opportunity to deliberate on those charges and deliberated only on what was presented to them. I cannot speak for other jurors, but I can help the truth be told. So that's pretty big statement here. Now we're gonna have to see how this stacks up, okay? Because we're going into uncharted waters with a grand jury coming forward and testifying about this stuff. But I'm hopeful that we're gonna get some pretty interesting news here in a little while. Um, yeah. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, why does racism matter so much? Why do we continually talk about racism, systemic racism? and all these other kinds of issues. Why do we talk about that? Like, what is serious question? Is it not quite patronizing to and condescending to claim that specific groups, trans in this instance, are harmed by jokes more than others? No, actually, because minority marginalized groups who are marginalized by wider society, um, for them, those groups are further marginalized by being the targets of pervasive and alienating jokes. Like, you realize, blackface was a joke at the expense of black people, right? Like, there it served a wider social purpose of othering black people, and there there are a lot of trans jokes out there that serve the exact same purpose for trans people. Um, so like, yeah, there's a difference between like a good humored joke and like a mean spirited one that is targeting someone for being different, right? You understand that? Um, anyway,